No worries. Yeah, I literally just woke up from a nap. So yeah, that's kind of what type of time I'm on right now. But
Oh, well, lucky you.
thank you. Yeah, it's been a long day, but I'm so happy you're here. This is so long overdue. I'm so sorry about that. I had like a whole idea for like a separate podcast, and I was like, you know what? Most of my problems stem from the fact that I never really commit to just one thing at a time. So maybe I should just stick to this. And I feel like I mean it's a perfect match either way. So welcome to Tub Time. Um,
Thank you.
yeah. It feels so good to be back. I was on a hiatus for like a year, so
Oh,
getting like my master's and stuff. So that it was just like a lot going on. Excuse the fact that like it's all like blurred right now, but I'm just like kind of working on, a whole look and everything. That's just what I do, micromanage. But
no worries.
yeah.
I keep mine because I've got a bed in the background. So I'm like, no one needs to see that.
I mean, maybe we do. Maybe it's
Well, although I have cool artwork back there. Hold
oh,
on. There we go. There you go. Let's see.
oh, that looks dope. Oh my God,
Yeah.
I love that.
I had it commissioned. I like the artist is pretty cool, but I'll go back to Blur. There we go.
All right. So welcome to Tub Time once again. So basically just give us a rundown of who you are, what you do. From what I've read, you are a very cool, dynamic, empowering, just all around badass motivational speaker. I'm assuming that you've traveled like all over the country. I don't know if you've traveled all over the world and like done like different talks and stuff like that, but you're known as the turnaround queen, if I'm correct. And I would love to know a little bit more about you and just what you do. And yeah.
Sure, sure. So I like to describe myself as a multi-potentialite. And by that I mean I have a multitude of diverse interests. And so you'll hear that when I talk about my background. So first of all, yes, I'm a professional public speaker, but that's actually my side hustle. I'm a 20 plus year C-suite executive, predominantly in the world of like business to business, professional services, technology and consulting and outsourcing services, with some expertise in a few industries. I thought I was going to be a lawyer, but somehow I landed up in this role and loved it. And then I have also bought and sold companies, and built companies and been a part of something like 40 merger and acquisitions. Some of them were because I bought companies, another 20 for what, or 15 or to 20 was for companies I worked for, and then probably another 20 in supporting clients. I'm a published author, a wife, a mother, a fitness fanatic, a foodie, a wine lover. How's that for as best of an overview as I can in this time frame?
That is literally awesome. That's more than I feel like I could ever do in my lifetime. So, I mean, so that's so interesting that that's a side hustle for you then, the motivational speaking part, because I feel like that is just such a key part of like who you are as a person as well. Just being able to use your voice like pretty much like every day. How did that kind of happen from the corporate side to the more
Well, so first of all, I guess I was kind of geeky in high school and I was on the debate club, but at the same time I was also like in drama and I won the award in drama, so I was acting as well. So I've always been comfortable in front of audiences. Although very different comfort when you start to not be play a character and yourself on stage. I actually found that like more nerve-wracking than like,
it's so terrifying being perceived.
yeah. So I started speaking probably like 20 something years ago. I stepped in my first executive role was at age 24, very young, as the chief operating officer for a BPO company, which is business process outsourcing. And so, you're in the attending conferences and events and you're sponsoring them and you get speaking slots. So my public speaking more formally began purely from a business standpoint. And then I shifted 10 or 12 years ago to doing it professionally, for which I could charge for, when I started to share a little bit more authentically, more of my story. And that's where some of the motivational pieces come in. I do speak on a number of business topics around diversity, equity, inclusion, and intentionality around that, future of work. but I also talk on things that are really personal. Like I overcame pretty severe trauma and adversity in my youth, and that's a big part of what propels me to move forward. And I started sharing it in smaller settings as I was coaching and mentoring groups, and just the power that came from telling my story. I was like, wow, well, why am I not doing that on a much broader stage? So I've added that into the mix. And as I said, for the last 10 or 12 years, I do it professionally. And yes, I've traveled the world, although a lot of that's actually been for my work. But I do it for public speaking as well.
Oh, wow. That's really, really cool. So I don't know what you're kind of willing to share on here. This is a very fluid type of podcast. You're more than welcome to talk about anything from business to personal life, dive as deep into the trauma as you need to. I will be there, all ears, supporting and just encouraging along the way. But this stage is literally up to you. Since you are the speaker, I'm pretty much just going to be passively sitting back. And I don't really have any direct specific questions just because I just feel like you have a lot to offer. You seem like an extremely bright, absolutely gorgeous person. And I would love to give you the opportunity to just do your thing, motivate me at the moment, and just go off.
Um, well, actually, I'm really excited. So I'm doing a TED Talk in May, and I don't know if you like they're 8 to 14 minutes. I don't usually talk for that short period of time, so I'm actually having to totally recreate my speech on resilience, which is the theme for that TED conference. So I'm looking forward to doing that, and in that, I talk around having a healthy level of resilience, and my story, my origin story is that I'm born to a drug addicted teenage mother who was very abusive to me. And I had been in and out of the child welfare system a number of times until Julie, my biological mother, met a couple, a woman in particular, who, after several of these abusive episodes, she would give me to them for a period of time. And finally, that woman said to her, "We'd like to adopt her and take her from you in this, very different life." And the most selfless thing Julie could have done was agree to that. So I ended up being adopted in out of her home and into a non-abusive home. However, lower socioeconomic condition with its challenges. My mom was diagnosed later as like, manic depressive. So sometimes it was tough in our
Yeah.
household. My dad is like the best example of infidelity you could ever. So I didn't have lots
Aren't
of
all
role.
men?
I didn't have
They
great
just love
role.
doing that, don't they?
Yeah. My dad was the worst. And so the I remember my mom said to me at one point, and my nickname growing up was Tori, and I got to pick my name. By the way, I changed my name after being adopted, which was kind of cool. Although, what 4 or 5 year old doesn't want a new name, anyways? I chose Victoria, but Tori was my nickname. And when I was, I think maybe like 11, I remember my mom said to me, "Tori, you need to do better than us." And she meant more from a vocation standpoint, socioeconomically. My mom was a secretary, my dad a janitor. And so there was no money to do the extra school trips. Or I didn't even, I think I had one vacation where we drove to Yellowstone National Park. Like that's it growing up. And so I don't think that she had to actually say that to me, because for me, I was determined I was gonna be better than my biology and, like, Julie's world and where, I was born into, and also kind of the circumstance. And so I share that as a big part of, like, my why. When I talk around career success, I started working at age 11. By 14, I was already the assistant manager of the shoe store I worked at, graduated high school at 16, went off to university and got promoted through the ranks, and then hence my first executive role at 24. Like, a big part of that is my drive, the why that comes from wanting to be better than, and at some point, I think I felt I had something to prove to the world
Yeah,
that I was better than all of those things.
I am absolutely like shocked and stunned by that alone because so many people they go through traumatic experiences in their childhood, but there's always a tendency to cling on to that, especially when you're alone as a child and you start to think, why is this happening to me? You kind of get like shrouded in that like cloak of darkness. A lot of children do. So the fact that you were kind of able to pull that veil from over your head and put your put your mind to like work is just absolutely astounding. And I mean, I don't know how you did it. Like you just put everything into overdrive and you were able to propel through that, which that alone, a lot of people in their adulthood are still struggling with that too. So, how do you kind of coach women and young girls who are growing up in abusive households, who feel very trapped in their environment, who feel like, my parents like don't let me go out, my parents won't let me do this or else they'll like literally like kill me. Like how do you what's like your advice for girls going through that and how can they kind of achieve that level of independence without having to rely on, you know, like John down the street who's like a 40-year-old perv who just says that he's gonna like be her sugar daddy and whatever. Like how do you kind of
I am I mean, it's tough if we're talking about, like, being underage, and now
right?
I did move out at, like, 17, and I've supported myself ever since, um, but so I've got what I say in terms of, like, there's a few things just around, like, I always say you're the CEO of you, of your life, of your career, like, you take charge of it, don't put it in anyone else's hands.
Mhm.
You are in control. That doesn't mean that challenge or adversity or trauma won't come your way. We can't control all of those things. Although I personally choose to be as drama free as possible. I don't let people in if there's consistent drama around them.
Right.
Um and but then I sign a lot of my social media posts with like 2 hashtags. One is unstoppable, and that for me is that nothing is going to prevent me from achieving whatever goal or objective I've set for myself. I'm going to go after it. The next is no excuses. And by that, and my children hate that, but it's, that like stop making excuses. Stuff is going to happen. You are in charge of how you respond and how you move forward. And then from there, I would say, around, talking about resilience, there's what I'd say an unhealthy way to be tough and resilient. And then there's a healthy way to do that. I had to learn. I don't think I stepped into like healthy resilience until later. My mom tried to model that for me, but I didn't. So for me, I was, my best friend calls me turtle because I do have a very tough exterior. I can shoulder a lot, but I'm really still soft and marshmallowy. I cry at the Humane Society commercials on TV, like that kind of marshmallow inside. But I wasn't always like that. Protecting myself with walls and barriers. I'm not going to show you that I'm vulnerable and emotional, and I feared rejection. I mean, the abuse and rejection from my biological mother, like, set me up for that. I had to learn how to love myself, be confident with myself, and learn how to deal with the adversity that comes by doing a few things. So I've sort of got this, like, 5 things I think about from a healthy resilience. So the first is being really clear on what your goal and objective is. That's always the anchor for you. The next is being really self-reflective and self-aware. So when you have like feelings or emotions or you act a certain way, understanding why. And then the next thing is being really intentional with how you're going to take action. Model the thinking, the language, the behavior to move you towards your goal or objective. 4 is surrounding yourself with a great community of people who are going to help you. And if that's professional help, then get it. But again, people who are going to support you, love you, but also call you on your shit. Sorry, I don't know if I can swear on your podcast.
You're fine.
Yeah, okay. But, like, who will call you and, like, challenge you on some of these things. And then the last is give yourself permission to fail. Like, we're perfect in our imperfections, and we are going to stumble, and that is fine. You get back up, one foot in front of the other is progress, as long as you anchor solidly on what that goal or objective is. So for me, that's how I've learned to be incredibly resilient when stuff comes my way. And
That's
so that's what I would tell your listeners. Being 15 years old and not being able to support yourself, there's some things you need to be mindful of in terms. So not everything I say might be applicable there, but certainly as then an adult and how you move yourself forward.
wow. That's absolutely incredible. Thank you for sharing. I mean, yeah, because I feel like it's so easy to kind of talk that talk, but actually putting the steps in and having that kind of accountability is something that people just absolutely grapple with because It's like, no, I can never be wrong. But you have to be wrong sometimes so that you can see what you can do right, so that you're not only making an impact on yourself, you're able to make an impact on others and just become the best version of yourself, because you're not going to be the best all the time. It's just something that you have to constantly work on every single day. And that's something that I learned myself. And that's a reason why I took a hiatus as well. So I could kind of like recoup and just be alone with myself, because my way of coping is through like self-isolation, so that I become like completely detached, completely de-influenced from the world, from other people's opinions. And so that kind of helps me get that kind of like hard exterior. I kind of like model it like a pyramid almost. Kind of just like you kind of build it up and up and up until you reach this like light at the top. Not to sound like the Illuminati or anything, but like just kind of like it just kind of feels like just such a transcendence, like when you actually get there, because the process itself, it can feel very kind of dizzying, kind of like you're going through a mirror maze and you're seeing different reflections of yourself as you're going through your journey. But eventually you get there and you start to see a version of yourself that you really, really love. And I'm glad that happened for you. So again, thank you for sharing. And I do kind of want to get into the business aspect, because I know that you stand for diversity, inclusion, and all of that, good stuff. So I am wondering, because for women these days, I always wonder, is it better for women to kind of enter the corporate world as entrepreneurs, as the future of being female becomes more of like a prevalent threat almost in kind of social discourse? A lot of people are like, oh no, like feminists are like bad in a certain sense, just because, I feel like we're kind of regressing as a society. Every time I open up Twitter, I always feel like I'm getting sucked into like an anger vortex, and I feel like my IQ is just slowly chipping away every time I open up social media. It's just anger, sadness, and depression. But a big part of why I do like my podcast and why I do social media is because I myself, with my degrees, I haven't been able to find a job in the corporate world. And I feel
Yeah.
like a lot of it is because of just different factors. Like, I'm young, I'm a female, I'm Pakistani, I don't fit that like old white dude like stereotype. I feel like a lot of like very select few women get to have like those opportunities. So how do you kind of encourage women in those positions to, who have done a lot of the work to get to that degree? How do you kind of encourage them to kind of step into a kind of corporate position if they feel like they're still bound by their identity in some way or another?
Yeah, I am. So to use the phrase I said earlier around like you're the CEO of you and your career. So don't let anyone tell you how far and wide you can go and try and hold you back. And I do spend a lot of time with either new immigrants or first generation, and they come with like their families cultural expectations, and particularly for women, like this is like what you're going to do. And then although they want in many cases them to get educated, as soon as they get married they want them to stay at home. And so
Tell me about
I
it. I mean,
I have
like,
lots
what
of
was the point?
like lots of conversations with like again, you need to be happy and fulfilled. And so um yeah, it's hard. I get it. It's hard to like challenge, family and some of those cultural expectations. But one, take charge of that for yourself. And that's going to come potentially with some heartburn or heartache in doing it. But like you want a life that's fulfilled. And I personally choose not to do things that don't bring me either personal or professional joy or value. I say no, I delegate, I outsource. And so find that out for yourself. And if you know what that is, then chart the course and be unstoppable. Don't let anything hold you back from that. The next, though, is be really, I find a lot of women lack the confidence to go after whether it's that new job or a promotion. And there's data behind it that shows that women typically don't apply for the new role or a promotion if they don't feel that they meet 9 or 10 out of the 10 skills criteria that are listed. Men at 5 or 6. And so, like, why are we not, having more confidence in the skills that we do possess? Um, Although I will tell you from a diversity and equity, and inclusion standpoint, for me, I will challenge companies when they say that they can't find a diverse slate of candidates for a role. I'm like, you're not looking in the right places or looking hard enough. And as a leader, I want to create diversity, and so I'm very proud to say in many of the companies I work for, I usually lead the most diverse team across the organization. But with that comes great performance because people feel a sense of inclusion and belonging. But for me, I have another phrase of the Victoria isms, strategic intentionality. And so that very much from a DEI perspective, understand the baseline from where you're starting, set yourself a goal realistically over how you're going to achieve that over X number, years. But then the intentionality piece is when you find a diverse candidate that maybe only has 7 out of 10 of those skills, but they have propensity to learn and potential. It's my job as a leader to help bridge that gap, help provide coaching and development to get them there. And so I tell your listeners to chart the course, be unstoppable in terms of where you want to get to. Don't let anyone tell you differently or hold you back, and gain confidence in what you bring to the table and go for it. I mean, you don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I feel like so many women are so afraid to ask because they're afraid that they'll just get absolutely crucified for asking. But if you don't ask, then you're never going to get there. I mean, I think I saw this interview with Megan Fox. She was like, if you ask, you're a bitch. And if you don't, then you just don't get what you want. So it's a lose lose situation either way.
Yeah.
But how are you going to know? And even if you hear a no, then that kind of already gives you incentive to get creative and find a different avenue that might actually open way more doors for you. And so, I mean, maybe it is a win-win at the very end because a lot of businesses, they always, a lot of businesses and a lot of business ideas, I feel they come from a source of a past failure that they then kind of transmuted into a business idea that became an absolute winner. So you never know. You never really
Yeah,
know.
exactly. I mean, I've
Yeah.
always had side hustles, and I'll encourage people if you have that idea or passion project, but it might not pay the bills, then do it as a side. You've got your 9 to 5 and then your 5 to 9. That's another reason, like no excuses. When you say you can't get to the gym or you can't work on this other project, it's a choice. If you're going to Netflix all day and all night, like that's a choice.
Yeah.
So there's ways to like start and go after, things. And even if it's on this part-time basis until it scales, for me, I did that. I made natural bath and body work products like soap. You don't make a single bar of soap, you make a loaf of it. And so I had so much product that I made it into gift baskets and gave it away, and people fell in love with it. So I made it a whole business. But I did that for me. It was fun. And so that was a passion project that grew to a business I eventually sold.
Oh my God.
So
I
I just tell
wish
people,
you had some soap so I could ask them for tub time. My God,
yeah,
would have been perfect.
yeah.
But yeah, that's absolutely amazing. And how did you kind of get into the whole diversity and inclusion part? Because like I mean, you fit the standard, you know what I mean? So like it's a little like from the outside looking in, like it's kind of like really heartwarming to have someone who, like kind of advocate for people who don't have that voice, who can kind of like relate to a lot more people. So how did you kind of step up and do that? Because
Um,
that's absolutely amazing to me.
well, So when so it's funny you said I sort of fit the mold, I guess, blonde white woman born in North America. Um, but I'm queer. I came out as bisexual at 14, and I was married to a woman for 11 years. I gave birth to my 2 children in my relationship with her. Unfortunately, she passed away from cancer. I am now married to a man. And I have a trans male son.
Wow.
Uh, so my work in the DEI space started because I think of that first executive role that I had. I was 24 years old. I was at least 20 years younger than other executives at the table. I was the only woman. I was the only queer person. I was a new mother. I just looked around and I'm like, I'm the only one. And then
That's
also I harbored like from my early beginnings differences. And but the BPO world, so you think outsourced contact centers, it's many companies jokingly say, our mess for less, like they pass it over. So customer service, tech support, sales kind of activities. People who in North America, that's not necessarily seen as the destination job to go to. It's one you get in between full other employment, or what I found, often new immigrants to the country. And so not only did I fit some diversity elements. I was managing a team who was predominantly, visibly like diverse. The majority of my team were immigrants.
mhm.
And for me, and the turnover in that business is massive. It's like 200 to 300% per year. And so I'm like, how can I retain people longer and also recognize there is actually a career in this?
Really?
And I needed to, well, my career started like I was COO at 24 doing that. And
Yeah.
I've my career ever since has been in some kind of professional services capacity. Um, and so I needed to create a sense of belonging and
Yeah.
like where everyone felt they could show up their whole selves. They weren't afraid to bring whatever their traditional food was in for lunch, worried about what it might smell like. I wanted to create an environment in which we celebrated our everyone's different experiences. So that's where it began. However, to your point of speaking up, I do have privilege. I am a white woman born in North America. So I don't have the experience of a Pakistani woman or a black man who has to worry when he gets pulled over by, police officers. Like the lived experience is very, very different. So I use my power and of in terms of hierarchy in an organization and my platform from being a speaker to be an ally for others as well.
I
But
think
also
that's so amazing. I'm sorry. You can keep
no, no,
going.
no, I was gonna say, but also to
That's so
call out
amazing to me.
call out, like, others who, like, are just wrong when it comes to this. It's like I publicly posted my last role was working for Accenture, and we had gone through some layoffs, and I was in fishbowl, and there was like in the executive fish so for the executives up there, and they're like, oh well, all the white men are gonna be the like first to go because all they're focused on is diversity. And I was like the first to go, fucking calling bullshit on that, guys. Like, let's stop right now. Like let's look at the data that shows like, that there's less than 10% women, in the Fortune, 500 as CEOs, only 6 black CEOs. Like clearly that's not representative of the world we live in. So there is progress that needs to be made. So let's, as the white, male, stop, talking about how hard done you are, in these situations.
Like they have to be a victim. That's
That's right.
it's just yeah, and I'm really glad that you do that because I mean, I don't want to like get into like, I mean, as a content creator alone in that field, there have been so many times where I've had, white content creators steal my content on a daily basis, or when there are opportunities that arise. Literally, there was there was an opportunity like 2 weeks ago. One influencer posted about it and she was like, "Oh, are there any diverse models in the Miami area? I have an opportunity for you guys." This white girl named Caroline is like, "Oh, I'm available." And she's like the whitest one in the group. And it's like, "Caroline, baby, she said diverse." Let other people have a chance to speak. It was like 2 seconds later, and it was just like, I mean, it was a funny experience. I don't think that she meant it in a bad way at all, but it just is interesting to me how, like, a lot of the times, women of color just don't get to vocalize it because they're like, they always have that internal, okay, what if I'm not good enough? Because, you know, these chances have just been like ripped away so many times. Or if I do get like really creative and if I do put out something original, is this going to be stolen? Is this going to be copied? Are people just going to take my content and try to make it better? Which I think is such a stupid concept, because if you're trying to take something and like make it better because like it wasn't that good in the first place, then why are you copying content that wasn't like good to you in the first place? That just never made any sense
Right.
to me. Like, like just imagine like any big actor, like I don't know, like imagine Shia LaBeouf in Transformers just suddenly coming out with his own Transformers because the Transformers that he was in before just wasn't good enough for him, and he rewrites
Yeah.
the whole entire script, and it just comes like spends millions and millions of dollars and just does, like the logic just doesn't make any sense to me. But I mean, I'm just extremely grateful that you have made it like such a life mission just to, be an absolute angel, and just all around like I don't even know what to say. I mean, I woke up from a nap, so my brain cells are just not even really working right now. But just know that I highly admire you. And we only have 8 minutes, unfortunately. I wish we had like 8 more hours. You're more than welcome to come on again, and we can like continue our discourse from there. But
Awesome.
I'm just gonna like leave this to you. Talk about do you have any upcoming projects that you want to discuss? Any Your eyes lit
Yeah.
up when you said that when I
Well, I've been busy, so I left Accenture like last June, and so I'm in transition looking for my next C-suite role, but I
yeah.
am not good at being idle. And so my husband jokes, he thinks I'm busier in my unemployment than when I was employed. And it's because I wrote 2 books during that time. So one was released in January around personal branding, which is something I am known for, and I speak on. LinkedIn had ranked me when I worked for IBM as their #1 social seller worldwide, and so IBM had me develop its education for its other executives around that. So that book, and then I wrote one on leadership and culture around whole human leadership. I refer to it. That one will be coming out this summer. I'm really excited. I said I'm doing a TED Talk. That one's I live in Miami Beach, so that's going to be the
I
TEDx here in May, and so I'm gearing up for that. And on the short term basis, my BFF and her partner are coming next week, and my son and his girlfriend, whom I haven't met yet, is coming the following week. And that my older son, the younger one, so needs to get a job. I'm like, find your job first, and then I'll fly you back here. So lots of things to look forward to between finding a new job, the book release, friends and family coming to visit. So it's going to be a great 2024.
it absolutely sounds like it. I'm definitely interested in that personal branding book as well. I absolutely know you're gonna kill it, and that's something that I really want to, get my little paws on.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, happy to. Although I tend to do more audiobooks, much like podcasts. I'm like more than anything. So it's called Influence Unleashed. And that one is you can find it wherever in whether you want physical, ebook, or audiobook.
All right, yeah. And if you have any links, like I'll absolutely put them in the
Sure.
description, on the screen, literally everywhere. Give you a